welcome to my channel, or welcome back. Today we have a Tamaki ex-listener. So the author says that your quirk is personality change, and from what I can take, they don't have an actual description in it. It's basically like you can affect other people's personalities. Yeah, so like you can kind of change them. So say somebody was shy, you can make them more bold. I believe it's just for like a short period of time. I don't really know, because there isn't too much detail on it, but yeah. You were at lunch with Mirio and his friends. You were talking with Hado, who was across from you, and Mirio, who was next to you. You turned your body so that way your legs rested on his lap. He smiled at you, and you smiled back. You then turned your head and saw Tamaki looking at you through the strands of his hair. You felt your heart begin to race a little bit, and you turned your head away to look at Hado. Hado was still talking, as usual, and you just pretended to listen as you got lost in your thoughts. You had known Mirio since you were born. His mother was friends with yours, and your fathers knew each other. Then, when your parents left for a mission, they never made it back. But Mirio and his family took you in, so he's been like a brother to you ever since. Then you met Tamaki and Hado. Hado was the only other girl you knew besides Mirio's mother, and then Tamaki, he was a very shy person, and that's what you two had in common. You didn't really talk to anyone else but them, mostly Mirio, and everyone finds it a bit weird that the weird shy girl is friends with the big three, but you don't know why they find you weird since Tamaki is the exact same. Mirio knew exactly how you felt towards Tamaki and had promised to keep it a secret, which you hoped he would. After classes you all agreed to hang out at Mirio's place, which was also your own, and as you were walking, you and Hado were behind the boys, talking about a stupid thing, and then Mirio began to whisper in Tamaki's ear, which made you a bit nervous. What did he tell him? Oh god, he didn't tell him, did he? Does Tamaki know now? Oh no. Hopefully not. Okay, please, God, please don't tell me he told him. As you were mentally panicking, you noticed a raindrop fall on your shoulder. You looked up, and as soon as you did, the rain just poured down. You yelped at the sudden rainfall, which caused Tamaki and Mirio to turn around and look at you, but Tamaki walked over to you and handed you his bag. You blushed slightly and took it, and used it for what you believed he wanted you to use it for. You pulled it over your head, and then before Tamaki could walk away, you handed him yours. His eyes widened slightly and then looked into your eyes. You wanted to look away, but you didn't. He shook his head, and before he could leave, you snapped your fingers. He looked over at you, his eyes in a gleam, and politely took your bag. There was no point in handing each other our bags since we were already drenched, but we did it anyways. Hado pulled an umbrella out, and she walked up next to Mirio. You sighed and looked at Tamaki. He had looked down at you and smiled. You know, you look kinda cute, all flustered and red. He winked and took your hand. He kissed it, which made you blush harder and made your body freeze like a deer in headlights. Then Tamaki looked into your eyes again. It's just so adorable. He winked and continued walking next to Mirio. You shook your head quickly and walked ahead of the rest of them so that way you could get dressed. When you made it to the house, you instantly ran into your room and started looking for clothes. You wore gray sweatpants and a dark blue t-shirt. You started to dry your hair and clothes as they were all in the living room watching TV. You then began untangling your hair when you heard a knock at your door. "Come in!" you yelled, and then continued brushing your hair. I just wanted to see if you were okay." You turned your head to the door and you saw Tamaki. You instantly became flustered and nervous. "Oh, yeah, I'm good. It's okay," you stuttered. He nodded and quickly handed you a mug. I made you some tea." You blushed even more and took the mug. "Oh, thank you." You drank some of the tea and looked up at him. Your eyes locked and you both started blushing again. You looked down while sipping your tea awkwardly. You looked up at him again, but he didn't break eye contact yet. Is it okay if I do something?" you asked, placing your cup down next to your mirror. For what?" he asked, getting nervous. You frowned slightly and held up your hand. I'm sorry," you whispered and snapped your fingers while looking into his eyes. His eyes got a gleam again, and his posture straightened. He stepped closer and shut your door behind him. He then began stalking towards you. You began stepping backwards, and then your back hit the front of your bed. You then grew red and looked down. "Listener, why don't you notice me for a change? You know you're all I think about. Every time I think, I have you out of my mind. There you are, ready to interrupt my thoughts. I've loved you ever since we were kids, ever since I had met you. I had this feeling about you." You stared into his eyes and you couldn't speak right at the moment. All you did was hold onto his wrist and lean in. He used his other hand to pull you closer by your back. He gently kissed you and then pulled away. Then his eyes lost the gleam in them. Listener, what just happened? He asked, backing away. He smiled and looked at the floor. I love you too, Tamaki. I also have since we were little. You looked up at him and his eyes were wide, his mouth slightly hung over, and his face was blushing really red. Are you serious? You nodded and stepped closer. He smiled slightly and looked down at you, and you did the same. He looked up at you, and then suddenly he hugged you. You froze, not knowing what to do, but then he rested his head on the crook of your neck, making you jump and blush extremely hard. You then slowly brought your arms up tightly around him. You moved your head to look at him, and then he looked at you. You were both blushing and nervous, but you didn't want to back away or apologize, so you both just stood there, staring into each other's eyes. You both began leaning in and connected your lips with his. You smiled slightly and then pulled away from his kiss and rested your forehead. So does this mean we're together? Tamaki asked. You laughed and nodded. You picked up the tea and began drinking it. Come on, let's go, he said, taking his hand. He blushed at your sudden action and nodded. He followed you out to the living room, and you both sat down in an available chair and curled up next to each other. So I'm guessing you two finally told each other? Hado said, smiling. You both began to blush and then nodded. Now you're dating? You both nodded again, and she smiled. That's so sweet. You guys made such a... Oh! I love this show. Hado focused on the TV again, and you both just smiled. He wrapped his arm around you and then pulled you closer. You smiled and wrapped your arms around him. Alright, this one was like a decent length, but it is still on the shorter side. I'm sorry about that, but I hope you enjoyed. Also, sorry about my raw voice. I only have one more fanfiction to read, and then, like the rest of the videos after that, my raw voice will be gone. Hopefully. It should be. Alright, goodbye!